The Galactic Academy xenobiology classroom fell silent as Alexander pushed through the reinforced doors, his boots echoing against the metallic floor. In his arms, he carried what every species in the room had been taught to fear since childhood: a void stalker, its obsidian carapace gleaming under the artificial lights, its 6 legs twitching occasionally as it slept. Emma, seated in the front row among her fellow Zephyrian classmates, felt her secondary heart skip a beat. The delicate, crystalline beings around her began to emit the high-pitched harmonic of terror that their species was known for. The Corvin students, despite their rocky exteriors and natural armor, visibly recoiled. Even the professor, a distinguished Altarian with centuries of experience, took 3 steps backward. "Sorry I'm late, Professor Veltar," Alexander said casually, as if he weren't holding a creature that had decimated entire colonies. Traffic was murder on the orbital highway. The Void Stalker, a beast the size of a large dog but infinitely more deadly, stirred slightly in his arms. Its multifaceted eyes opened briefly, scanning the room with predatory intelligence before closing again. The creature seemed comfortable. "Mr. Chen?" Professor Veltar's translator crackled with static, betraying his nervousness. "What exactly are you doing?" Alexander looked down at the creature in his arms with genuine affection. "Oh, this is Midnight. Found her as a hatchling 3 months ago on Kepler 442b. Her pack was killed by mining equipment. Illegal strip mining operation. She was starving. Barely alive." Emma watched in fascination as Alexander gently stroked the beast's head with 2 fingers. The Void Stalker's throat rumbled with what could only be described as purring. Around the classroom, students were either frozen in terror or slowly backing toward the exits. "The textbooks say Void Stalkers are untamable," whispered Crix, a Mantarian student whose compound eyes were fixed on the deadly creature. "They say they're pure killing machines evolved to hunt in packs across the void between stars." Alexander shrugged. "Yeah, well, textbooks also used to say humans couldn't survive in space without environmental suits for more than a few seconds. Turns out when you actually try things instead of just assuming, you learn stuff." He walked to his usual seat right next to Emma and sat down carefully, adjusting the Void Stalker in his lap like it was a house cat. The creature's razor-sharp tail, capable of piercing titanium plating, curled contentedly around his wrist. "The bonding process was interesting," Alexander continued, apparently oblivious to the panic he was causing. "Void Stalkers are actually highly social creatures. They hunt in packs, which means they need to communicate, cooperate, show loyalty, all the things that humans are pretty good at too." Emma found her voice, though it came out as barely a whisper. But they're apex predators. They've killed thousands of our people." Alexander's expression grew serious for the first time. "Yeah, they have. And humans have killed billions of each other throughout history. Doesn't mean we can't learn to be better." He looked around the room at the terrified faces. "See, this is what I don't get about the rest of you guys. You're all so much more advanced than humans in so many ways. The Zephyrians can manipulate matter at the molecular level. The Corvins can survive in the vacuum of space. The Altarians have minds that can process information faster than our best quantum computers." The Void Stalker in his lap stretched, its deadly claws extending and retracting lazily. "But you all gave up on the things that made you who you are when you joined the Galactic Federation. You started thinking of civilization as sitting in comfortable rooms following rules, avoiding anything dangerous or unpredictable." Alexander scratched behind one of Midnight's auditory organs, and the creature's purring grew louder. "Humans? We're the youngest, weakest, most fragile species in the galaxy according to every metric you guys use. We can't breathe half the atmospheres out there. We die if the temperature varies by more than a few degrees. We need to eat constantly, and we sleep for a third of our lives." Emma realized she was leaning forward, hanging on every word. "But we're also the species that looked at fire and said, 'I'm going to control that.' We looked at the ocean and said, 'I'm going to cross that.' We looked at the sky and said, 'I'm going to fly up there.' And when we got to space and found it was full of creatures that could kill us without thinking about it, we said, 'Let's try to understand them instead of just being afraid.'" Professor Veltar had regained some of his composure. "Mr. Chen, while your philosophical point is noted, you cannot bring a dangerous predator into—" "She's not dangerous," Alexander interrupted. "Not to friends, watch." He whispered something to the Void Stalker in a language none of them recognized, not Galactic Standard, not any of the major species' languages. The creature looked up at him with what could only be described as adoration, then turned to face the class. "Midnight, this is Emma," Alexander said, gesturing to the Zephyrian girl beside him. "Emma is a friend." The Voidstalker studied Emma for a long moment, then made a soft clicking sound and bowed its head slightly. A gesture of respect in Voidstalker body language, though none of the other students knew that. Emma, surprising herself, reached out tentatively and touched the creature's head. The carapace was warm, not cold as she'd expected, and textured like smooth stone. Midnight's eyes closed in contentment. "The thing about humans," Alexander said quietly, "is that we don't just survive in a hostile universe. We make friends with it." Around the classroom, students began to slowly return to their seats, curiosity overtaking fear. The professor, after a moment's hesitation, cleared his throat and began the day's lesson on predator-prey relationships in hostile environments. And in the front row, a human boy and his impossibly dangerous pet listened along with everyone else, while a Zephyrian girl marveled at how much the universe could change in a single morning. After all, they had said humans were fragile. But perhaps, Emma thought as she watched Midnight fall asleep during the lecture, fragility wasn't always a weakness. Sometimes it was exactly the kind of strength the galaxy needed.